That was so cute. All right, hey, we be live. Hello, everyone.
Hello! Dude! Durudu
Durud.
Stamazis!
Oh my god. Okay, that's Susanna speaking Persian. She said Durun Dusaziz. What did you say?
Dustanaziz.
Dustana Aziz. Oh my god. She says hello, my friends.
My
This is
dear
very cute.
friends.
My dear. Oh yes, my dear friends. Aziz. Yeah. Wow, you're translating it better than I am. Yeah, that's true. That's what she said. Okay. Okay. So hi everyone. We're doing a Q&A. We have a lot of Patreon questions. So for people who don't know how this works, we post a link to this stream on our Patreon account, and our patrons post their questions under it. Like we usually post it a day ahead, and then we answer the Patreon questions. And after we're done with the Patreon questions, or halfway through the show, I'm gonna post a link to the stream for our members. If they want to ask their questions live on air, they could come up and they ask their questions live on air. Okay, so that's the basic. So if you're a YouTube member, you get to come up and ask your questions live at me at that point. Okay, but you have to
Plot
keep it short.
twist. Bread of Life is speaking back to us in Persian.
Oh my god! Wow, man, I'm just like she's saying I like you too. That's pretty cool. This, oh my god. To say as is, why is everybody speaking Persian? This is
I
amazing.
know. What the
Oh,
heck? I mean,
Gossip.
gossip, we know that, obviously, but.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, welcome to the Q&A, everyone. Um, so we got a lot of juicy Patreon questions today, and we will also be taking live chat questions if you make a donation through the donation function, as
Oh,
well
true.
as member questions. So consider supporting us that way as well. And if you do make a donation question, please make sure to at Atheist Republic when you make it, so we can keep track of them.
Yeah,
Anyways,
Gossam thinks this all these people speaking Persian is the sign of the Persian Empire rising back.
no, I'm
So,
just kidding.
I
the
I know he's kidding, obviously, but okay. All right. Okay. Okay.
other
So
people don't know.
yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Let me actually start some comments here because people are sending their questions in the live chat already. All right. Let's go through the Patreon questions first. Hi, Gage and
Okay,
American and Secular Sekai. Mario. Okay, let's continue.
so first patron question is from Secular Sakai, who is asking: a referendum was announced last month by Russian-occupied South Ossetia in to consider annexation into the Russian Federation. This week, grenade attacks occurred in the Russian allied Moldovan Transnistria.
Mhm.
If Russia moves to invade another nation in the near future, which strategic region do you think they will target next? Moldova, Georgia, or a desperate move against Finland and Sweden before they
N-
join NATO? And why?
I think it would be Moldova because that seemed like it was part of their or plans already when they were attacking Ukraine, and they thought that it's gonna go a lot better than it went. I think they were supposed to go and take that region away from Moldova at the same time, right? So that is again, none of this is certain, but that if that's about to if it's supposed to happen, I think that is the most likely one, and the least likely one is Finland and Sweden. These are like serious countries with like it's not with
What do you mean by
big
that? Serious countries.
big in like major economies, right? And a lot of EU, connect allied with other EU countries, right? In a much stronger way with bigger militaries than Ukraine has, with more advanced economies than Ukraine has. And I think like the backlash to that would be a lot more aggressive. And also, I think Russia, seeing how poor their military has performed against Ukraine, I don't think they would have an appetite to try and do that with an even more a more serious challenge, like obviously they wouldn't be able to do that. And I think that I don't know that you would unite the entire world against them even more than they already have. So the least likely. Again, I'm not saying that maybe they are. I mean, Putin might be insane, so maybe they are considering doing that. But I'm just saying if there's any sanity. I mean, it just like okay, just probably not.
I
Right?
think it would also be Moldova,
Yeah.
partially because I don't know if you remember this, but like a month ago, maybe more, the leader of Belarus, Lukashenko, he did a press conference where in the press conference he had a map that basically revealed a bunch of information about the Russian invasion, and
Yeah.
and people are like, to what extent was that purposefully planted to create distraction and red herrings? But either way, it
Either way.
showed in this map planned action against Moldova, particularly regarding this breakaway region called
Yeah.
Transnistria. So that leads me to believe that this is, a piece of the overall puzzle at large. And then second would be Georgia, I guess, just because they've already dealt with, or taken action against Georgia previously. I don't know how likely the Georgia is, but the Moldova, it seems much more likely to me.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is kind of a follow-up that I think is good. Secular Rarity is saying, I'm worried the international community will get bored with the invasion of Ukraine and take their focus off of it. What do you think about that, Armin? Because I've already started to sense that.
Well, I mean, I think more important than okay. I mean, it's true, but I think like at least when it comes to the politicians, they're escalating their support for Ukraine, right? So these two things are related, but at the end of the day, we want people's attention on Ukraine so that the politicians, you know, see the need because of the people who vote for them being interested in it. Therefore, they will see political capital in supporting Ukraine. So, I mean, we don't want people's attention. Like people's attention by itself is not the end goal. The support for Ukraine is, and this is how international community's attention to this situation is one way to make sure the support for Ukraine is there, right? But given that the end goal is for support for Ukraine, I'm not that worried yet. I mean, I might be worried in the future because even with less attention, there are a lot more advanced military equipment being sent to Ukraine than compared to when people were paying more attention for some reason, right? But the reason why the support is seems to be a little bit independent from so what we want from is because these politicians themselves are very much invested in maintaining the liberal world order, right? That has been challenged, right? So I think what you require is for people just to not be against supporting Ukraine. As long as they're on the side, like it doesn't have to be as strong as it was initially. As long as on average more people are in favor of supporting Ukraine than people who are not against it, then politicians have the green light to continue supporting Ukraine. And even if it's not as passionate as it was initially, I think because these politicians themselves see it within their interest to go all out, that's already has untied their hand to support Ukraine. I mean, I don't know if people understand. This is all the stars aligning for a perfect military support that a lot of politicians and also a lot of people um, within the military industry were waiting for, and a lot of people in the intelligence agencies, right? Because it's a just like things haven't been looking good morally and emotionally for people with this business for the past, I don't know, 20 years. Like it must they didn't have the support of the people. And you know how sometimes people think that, like, I don't know, people in the intelligence agencies or in the military industry they're just heartless people with no emotions. But it's not the case. These are human beings, and when the world's they must have, and many of them don't feel like they were participating in something that is making the world a better place, right? And people want to feel like they are doing something meaningful. And the morale, basically, the morale, like the morale has been very low, from especially the American side.
Okay, excuse me. I'm not too concerned about the morale of the military-industrial complex in the
Mor-
United States and those
I
in Washington, who need it.
You should be.
Like, I would
Let me tell you
prefer
why.
if our countries could divert more spending towards social welfare, and because of this, we're going to be all of us are going to be spending more money on defense, which is going to that's going to be a major loss in many ways.
No, I mean, given Putin, I think it's a good reminder to all of us. It's something I've changed my mind on, actually, right? That it's important to spend money in the military industry complex. It's
I'm not saying
important.
we shouldn't. I'm just saying
Yeah,
I'm not overly concerned about their morale.
you should be. One reason why Putin is losing is because they don't have the morale on their side. They
Oh no,
don't
of the
have.
people who are participating, that's different. I thought you were talking about just defend, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the companies that just like design these
No,
weapons and need to sell them and that kind of thing.
I'm talking about everybody involved in all of this, right? On average, not you people not thinking, not having the just cause excuse or having that challenged all the time makes it's not always just about money. People want to do something that people don't want to feel like they're evil, right? It's hard not to do that when you're after the Iraq invasion, or after pulling out of Afghanistan, after all these sacrifices, and it calmed down to nothing, right? Makes it seem like from the very beginning they were at the wrong, and they like these are people who have lost friends. I mean, yeah, I know. I mean, it's hard to escape that thought, right? What I mean, people need to have passion for what they're doing. People. I mean, it seems like it's something that is not important, but morale actually, when it comes to different countries against each other, sometimes morale being high or low is what actually determines the outcome. Like it's a major factor, right? And I'm just saying that this is something that the Americans, for example, whoever is involved, could safely say that, okay, we're doing something good here. You know what I mean? They don't have to. This is why a lot of people miss the Cold War, right? Because they haven't had that sense of being on the on the right side for a very long time, and now Ukraine is giving that excuse, right? So, anyways, I'm just saying that their hands are untied and they want to go all in. And when it comes to the international community, the main thing, that the only thing they need for the green light is for them not to be against it. I appreciate you be. I know why you are like you're like, look at those eyes. You're like, look at it, like. I know why you're I know, because of what recently we've been studying together and going over. I think, like, given the cost of all the destruction and loss of life, that the U.S. military has caused, that was when they were on the wrong side. You think like you're comparing what I'm saying to all of that harm, and that's what makes you think like this is like not that big of a deal, right? But because of its effect on the end result, I think it is a big deal. But I understand why you think it's not.
There's
I'm being too
just
picky.
so much that goes into continuing involvement that is not worth it, is a waste of money, and causes greater human suffering.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
to hear you be
I'm
like,
not.
I care so much about the morale of these people in Washington think tanks who they need to feel like they're on the right side. I'm like,
Well,
I care about the well being of like the troops, right?
I'm
But
I'm
I'm
not
like,
doing a judgment. This is a descriptive. I'm describing what's happening, right? Whether, first of all, I'm not saying that I personally want them to feel like, I'm not doing a judgment on whether or not they should feel happy or not. But I'm just telling you, I'm just describing what's happening and its results and its effect on the results. You know what I mean? This is a descriptive statement. So I'm just saying morale is high on one side, on the American side. The morale is low on the Russian side. And this has an impact. It's not, this is why some people just lose wars over their side having a low morale, right? So that's all I'm doing.
I think we're talking about like two very different levels of things.
I
Anyways, we
think
should move to the next
I think you
question.
think I'm judging. I'm just like, yay, good. That's fantastic that the morale for you is high. I'm just like, I'm not like celebrating it. I'm just knowing. I just know that I'm just saying that there's a huge effect.
Asian American is saying, is this Canadian paying our taxes? I only want American opinions on this. Thank you very much, Asian American. Finally, someone gets it. And by the way, Armin, you're welcome. So much yeah. You're welcome for my taxes.
Well, I'm gonna highlight this one then. Maria saying I agree with Armin on this one.
I don't know. I think it's something that warrants a longer discussion because I think I'm thinking about it on like a very different level than you're thinking about it. In terms of like literally like the people involved, not necessarily like macro social. Anyways, I just feel like mommy and daddy are fighting. Okay, let's go to another question. And so this is a question from Oxymoron. And it has to do with the Elon Musk takeover of Twitter, saying Elon Musk was so great with free speech, but he wants to authenticate people, which possibly cannot be done without breach of anonymity. Thoughts?
When he said he wants to authenticate all humans?
Yeah, but we don't know anything about how he would do that yet.
But if it requires that, then you don't have to authenticate. Like, all you have to do is like, okay, thanks for, thanks, but no thanks. Like, I think he's not gonna. It's not like he's gonna force everyone to authenticate. I think the people. Oh, maybe he is because he wants to fight all the bots. I don't know. Like, you're saying that everybody who doesn't authenticate their account will lose their account. Is that what you're saying? And
we
in a
don't
way
know enough yet.
we don't.
I
Yeah,
don't
we
think
don't
we
know
can
enough
make a
yet.
judgment. We have no idea what processes would come in to make this happen.
There is a process in the I forgot what it's called. In blockchain, there's something that you could authenticate that you're a human, or authenticate certain information about you without giving away your identity. There's a way that has a specific name for it in the blockchain world. Zero knowledge proof. Oh my god, I remember. Is that what it is? Zero knowledge proof. So if zero knowledge, okay, yes, in cryptography, a zero knowledge proof is a method by which one party can prove to another party that a given statement is true, while the prover avoids conveying any additional information apart from the fact that the statement is indeed true. So using cryptography, you could authenticate, for example, your birthday, or the fact that you're a human, or I don't know, your gender or whatever, but the other side will get the authentication that these statements are true without you giving away who you are. So there are ways to do that using this technology. Yeah, so there you go.
Okay. Here's a perfect question for you. So before I ask this, I would like to say congratulations, Armin, for the liberal world order standing for just a little bit longer in the meanwhile, because Macron was recently reelected
Oh my god,
as the president of France this past weekend.
I'm still not happy because
So, okay, well, let's get to the question.
okay, okay.
Mario is asking, are you optimistic for Europe now that Macron is re-elected? What challenges do you see ahead for Europe as a whole?
Okay, I'm happy that he won, but the gap is by a bigger he won by a bigger margin than people assumed, but still the margin is less than before. Like I cannot believe, okay, that the leadership of such an important entity, such an important force, which is the European Union, okay, and the leadership from United States as well, is just like it's just up in the air like that. You know what I mean? This is why democracy is so freaking fragile. You
Yeah,
know,
this
like
is like one of the greatest flaws of democracy. How do
like
you respond to that, sir?
I am scared because because the defense of everything that has made the world a better place is rest upon the shoulders of United States, I don't know, Canada, Australia, and the European Union, and maybe Japan and South Korea, and maybe Taiwan.
Wait
I
a
don't
sec,
know.
I'm scared.
I'm scared, but the main two is United States and the European Union, right? That's what we are like hoping. Like, hey, guys, can you please keep the world at peace, right? And the leadership of these entities are like based upon people who are voting in United States, a whole bunch of wackos that think that want Jesus to come and wipe over, take over, bring back the second, and the temple in Jerusalem, right? And they believe in, I don't know, a whole bunch of people that are controlling the world and sucking, children's blood and crap like that. And these are the people who are like really having an effect on, Trump maybe coming back in office. And in France, for example, I mean, we're talking about the entire European Union, but let's be honest, the leadership of the European Union is just Germany and France, okay, right? And Germany is now taking a back seat in leadership, so it's mostly France, right? And a whole like there's a lot of right leaning loons in France that could basically that their vote has such a huge impact on this on the leadership that is standing between us and absolute chaos all in the entire planet. Like this is like this liberal order that we keep telling people that has kept the world at peace ever since World War II at such levels of peace and stability that we haven't seen in the past 15,000 years of human civilization. We have never been so lucky and so privileged to experience something like this, and we have had this for less than 100 years, and we somehow, a lot of us, assume that this is just the new normal. And don't worry, now, even though it has been less than 100 years that we have this, we're not going to lose it. Guess what? We could lose it like this. Okay, like this is not a precedent that we are sure that is going to remain. People have no idea the amount of war and chaos that the world was used to before this. Like, people, they watch the news, they think like everything is up in the, like, we have chaos right now. You have no idea how things used to be. This is the best we have ever had. We cannot screw with this. Okay, we cannot mess with this. And it's so unbelievable that we have to rely on just a few countries, like apparently the leadership of France and United States being right now the main two, for this not to topple. And both of them, a whole bunch of right-leaning loons, can just remove the main people that are advocating for continuing in this path. And guess what? The people who are voting in them, these, the challenge to all of this in power, are religious loons. So don't tell me atheist activism is not important, because in both cases in United States, these are some Christian nut jobs. I mean, no offense to our Christians in the live chat. I'm just talking about the specific Christians who are like extra loony, right, in the United States, right? They want to bring the end of the world just because they want their Messiah back. You know, they are having a huge influence in the United States, and also Islam was the main reason why in France we have, I mean, the ISIS and all the refugees and stuff is a reason why in France far right extremism has now become a much bigger issue than it was before, right? I mean, both Islam in France and refugees from outside of France to Europe. So it's both, all of these challenges to the world order has a religious roots. So one way you could maintain all this peace and stability to last longer, hopefully, is to fight religion, because that is where the challenge is coming from. It's from religion. So tell people when they think like atheist activism is not that big of a deal. It could be we have to change these attitudes. Like, if in the next few generations we don't change these attitudes, this whole thing could come toppling down. Okay. Anyways,
Well, in
but
other news,
everybody should be scared. But go on.
We have a new member. Thank you,
Oh.
Arjun, for becoming a new member. Welcome to
Thank
Satan's
you.
Minions.
Thank you, Arjun. Oh, by the way, if you're a member, we in a few, halfway through the show, I'm going to post a link on our community tab for members to be able to come up and ask their questions live.
Oh, Blank Name is saying, don't blame the refugees. They created these refugees. He's not blaming the refugees. He's talking about the larger influences.
I'm saying
there's no blame attributed.
I didn't say I'm saying the refugees, their lives were ruined partly because, ISIS and the rise of. I'm blaming ISIS. I didn't blame the refugees. I'm saying the refugees happened because of ISIS. So, when did I blame the refugees? Oh, you're muted.
And I'm muted. Seth, I just noticed that Seth donated $5. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Seth said, a fundraising ad for Eddie, the Dean Center, which is like a Muslim show, for those who don't know, played when I tuned into the stream. Annoying, but I watched the whole ad so that the impression costs them more, giving money to Atheist Republic instead. Thank you, Seth. Okay, so let's move to the next question. One moment. This is right up Armin's alley. So Secular Sakai asks, what are your thoughts on libertarianism? When I say libertarian, I refer to the version closer to European classical liberalism, meaning socially liberal, fiscally conservative minarchism, not the racist paleo-libertarians, crazy anarchist capitalists, or whatever the sensationalist Vermin Supreme fan crowd is. Vermin Supreme is like this wild performance artist basically in America, if people don't know. But as the resident libertarian, Armin, what are your thoughts? What is libertarianism to you?
Okay, so obviously when it comes to individual liberties, I think both the issue is not there. Okay, I think people agree, from the social liberal side, both leftist, libertarians, and everybody that is close to us wants the the socially liberal part to be maximized as much as possible, right? We're pro gay rights, women rights, trans rights, legalizations of drugs, pro-choice, all of that, right? So when people want to touch on libertarianism and whether it's evil or good or somewhere in the middle, they're focusing on the physically conservative part, right? When I say, I don't like, when they say fiscally conservative, I mean, I don't like that name, but even though it's true, but because I think it should be fiscally liberal as well, right? Because the whole idea is that you want to also remove unjustifiable or costly or harmful restrictions on the economy in the same way that you want to do that with social liberties, right? And the thing is that, oh, so a lot of people think like that means that what you want to do is not to have any government influence on trade or businesses. You just want to completely let them do whatever they want, um which is, as you mentioned, that would be ANCAPs or something crazy like that, right? um Basically, you're a person who believes in personal freedoms, but you also believe in capitalism being a very effective tool in increasing prosperity among people, right? However, the disagreements of people, so people get hung up over this, like, oh, okay, so you want less regulations, right? um so you want to let businesses do whatever they want. The thing is that I don't think anybody disagrees on this if you actually pay attention, because the disagreement is like, everybody probably would agree that you want to remove regulations that are not helping, regulations that are restricting trade and increasing prosperity, um, without actually doing anything good. So, and I think everybody should agree. I mean, most people would agree that regulations that actually does reduce harm are good. So instead of like thinking about this ideologically, like, are you libertarian, are you not libertarian? I think we should actually focus on the disagreement and see which regulations are helping and which ones are not. So I think like these labels, I mean, I use the label libertarian, but I don't think you should use the label libertarian as a way for you to be like, I'm a libertarian, therefore my conclusion here is this. I think instead of ideologically decide whether in every scenario a government should be involved or not even be involved because of the camp you belong to, you should do a case by case analysis, right? So capitalism does not mean that government should be completely hands off, right? Even if you study like Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, from the very beginning, the government was introduced a role, because the market was understood to be blind to positive and negative externalities. Therefore, the government had, so the market is going to not be going to is not going to be perfect, and because the market is not perfect, the government has to be involved and adjust for certain things. It's not whether the government should be involved or should not be involved. It's the level of involvement that we're disagreeing with. And I think when it comes to the level of involvement, instead of being completely like, oh, I want less involvement always or more involvement always, every scenario should be analyzed independently and researched and scientifically, do data collection scientifically and come up with experts to analyze what gave it, what, historically, what gave us a good result and what didn't give us a good result, and come up with a judgment independent from your ideology. Like, okay, it seems like in this scenario, either education or healthcare or whatever, this level of government involvement gives us the most positive outcome. This level and this method gives us the most positive outcome, right? So do not, I mean, these labels are fine. I'm not one of those people like, oh, I don't like labels. Labels are fine, but don't make the label something that gives you, um, forces you like to give consistent answers, to be true to your label rather than finding what is the most useful solution. Does that make sense?
I think you explain it very well, or
Mm.
your understanding of it, or what you identify with about it very well. I have no idea what I would label myself politically. I just like when I take a political compass test, I'm just like I get tossed into the left libertarian quadrant.
Mhm. Well,
But
socially, you're very liberal. Socially,
yeah,
as you
yeah,
said,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, physically, I don't think you can make your mind yet because you haven't been as involved in studying. Like I took econ in school, right? And I think you are taking a very responsible decision in not having a position when it comes to fiscal, because I think most people who make a decision on where they lie fiscally, they do so without having any understanding of finance and economics, right? And they just and these are complicated. Like being socially liberal is an easy decision, right? It's easy to see why people should be able to free to do what they want to do as long as they're not harming anybody, right? But a lot of people, without having any knowledge of finance and economics, they make a decision on what's good, even though it's a lot more complicated, right? So I think it shows how honest you are and how responsible you are, Susanna, with your positions, because you haven't taken a position because you have realized that it's not that easy to know what's good when it comes to the physical side.
Well, thank you. I used to definitely let my economic thoughts just follow my social thoughts. Like my social opinions, that comes first, and then kind of whatever is the general say or influence of the people who align with that social cause, and then that's what the economic is. There's not actually like a thought or understanding that follows it, and honestly I think most people are that way. But now I just try to just take a step back when I'm like, actually, I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to pretend that I know what I'm talking about. So
that's very reasonable. That's very. I wish more people were like that, but yeah, good.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So Mario's asking, now that Elon owns 100% of Twitter, like I predicted a few weeks ago, do you think he will finally reinstate you guys? I sure hope so. Also, what is your take on the whole situation? The woke left seem to be in panic mode, and the conservative right seems to be celebrating like they won the lottery. Okay, that's a good observation because it's pretty hilarious. Okay, just in terms of our personal Twitter, like we are doing things in the background. We have, little legal things that we're doing, but this definitely changes the landscape of what we're dealing with considerably. So that being said, we are going to be reapplying to remove our suspensions, not only for the Atheist Republic account, but for our personal accounts as well. I'm still thinking about the timing of doing that because this just happened, I'm still wondering about, okay, this doesn't mean that things at Twitter just change overnight, right? Takes time for these changes and attitude shifts to actually manifest and materialize, but we are going to be taking action on this. I like the way that people, write this question to us because a lot of people ask us, oh my god, is Elon going to give you your Twitter back? I'm like, Elon Musk is not going to personally give us back our Twitter. like, Mr. Musk, hey, have you done it? And he's like, I've done it. He has no involvement of this. Anyways, but let's talk about the
I don't think that's what they mean though. I think they're joking, but yeah, that's funny though.
Yeah. Let's talk about the greater fallout from this, which has been hilarious to watch. I mean, Armin, you don't really engage on Twitter as much as I do. I don't engage. I just sit back and observe, and I also look for news stories for us to cover. And I do some dirty digging on some people. Like I was doing dirty digging on some Persian anti-regime drama today. Anyways, I think it's really funny to see how people on the left are losing their freaking minds, man. It's embarrassing. It is so embarrassing to me as someone on the left to see people losing their minds over someone who's saying, I want this platform to be better structured and oriented towards more free exchange of ideas and less censorship. Like people are talking about how Elon Musk is a low melanated supremacist, someone of a supremacist of someone with my skin tone. I can't use the word because of YouTube. And how he's upholding, this whitey supremacy and just they're acting like the sky's falling down. And there's people who are like, I'm going to quit and protest. Like we're boycotting and just histrionic. It's just absolutely people on the left are acting histrionic over this. And it's embarrassing to me. I'm like, where are the like lefties who actually like really like are really into free speech? I mean, Ali Rizvi wrote like a long thing on his Twitter, on his Facebook, about why he's into Elon and thinks this is a good thing. So that's one. But most of the people who have like a measured like, yes, I'm this isn't necessarily a bad thing, or like center right people.
Well, okay, I don't. Okay, so let me give you a more. So you gave us some example of some lefty takes that might be, cringe. But let me give you some lefty takes that are concerned about this, that are more legitimate, maybe. Okay, so I'm concerned. So
I'm sure that there are, but I'm just not
yeah,
seeing. That's the minority of who I'm
I know.
seeing. That's what's upsetting to me. Sorry.
That's why
Anyways.
I want to offer them, just to see what your take is, right? So yeah, some people are going out and they're like, oh my god, this is like, um, you know, low related supremacy taking over, and this is the end of, um, and they're losing their position on Twitter because they felt like they had a dominance over Twitter, and now they're losing it, right? So they're panicking. Okay, but here's some more valid concerns. Okay, the idea of somebody, this highlights why they have a problem with so much wealth being accessible to just a few individuals, right? Twitter is a place where a lot of the discussions, a huge percentage of the discussions about all ideas on this planet happens on Twitter, right? It's crazy that we live in a world where one individual can come and just take that over and then do whatever he wants with it, right? Even if we are lucky, even if we are on the side like, oh, this is going to benefit us individually because he's going to, like, I don't know, give us back our account and make it less sensorial, you know and that is good, positive for us. The fact that it's a possibility shows how, I mean, this is beyond just political power. This is everything power. This is a control. This is now one individual owning the public's sphere, like owning and being able to do whatever he wants, to where people make up their minds about so many things, and where news is like spread around and people do activism and stuff like that. That ability, that amount of like, the fact that somebody could gain so much money and then be able to take that over, shows a centralization of power and influence to a level that should concern us. I mean, in this case, it turned out might turn out in our favor, right? But is this how we want to fix things? Because it could have been the other way around as well, right? We
Well,
are, yeah. Go on.
this is kind of interesting to me because I might be misremembering, but back when before this happened, maybe it was just when Elon only bought like 9%. Like, I feel
Mm.
like you had a very different position. I feel like you were like very like positive about him taking this action, while other people were already raising the alarm about him having a majority stake.
Oh no, I was concerned a little bit back then as well, but I'm not even right now giving my position. I'm giving you a more, I mean, I'm just giving you a more charitable take on people who are concerned about this.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
okay. Well, that's
Yeah,
true. That is a way better concern to have.
yeah,
So, what is your
yeah.
position?
I mean, I don't. I'm just. I don't have a position yet. I don't know what's happening. You people. I mean, it is a wild card, right? So my
Yes,
position,
he is a
my
loose
position,
cannon.
my comeback against that concern, okay, is that he can't do whatever he wants with it. This has to be economically viable. If he does whatever he wants with it, it will become economically unviable, and people's social media use is very liquid. Like, you can't be like, oh
Hmm.
no, he's not going to control Twitter and he's going to move it to the direction that he wants. No, if he screws with it too much, people will just hop over to another social media because it's easy. We saw how fast TikTok became a thing. We saw how uncommitted people are to the social media platforms that they use, right? So even with Elon Musk taking it over, people think like it's his toy. No, like if it's not serving exactly what a lot of the users want, then people will give it up like that, right? So I
Mm.
don't think that I think the level of influence that he has over Twitter, because he now owns it, is somewhat exaggerated because people don't understand how owning something doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want with it unless you're fine with driving it to the ground. You know what I mean? You have to keep it economically viable, and that still means serving the customer or serving the user um, exactly the way, to your best ability. So you're limited to what you can do with it. Anyways,
Well, I
so
hope he
that's my
makes some
comment.
serious improvements because I would always said that like Twitter is the most one of the most consistent apps or products dedicated toward alienating its user. Because they have so many
Yeah.
features that just suck. um, okay, so oh, there was a hilarious question from me that made me laugh out loud earlier today. Where was it? Um, oh, here we go from Asian American. Asian American is asking Atheist Republic and also Shinto practitioners clap their hands twice. One to announce non terrible news, and the other to call attention from the kami, or like the god or the spirit. What are your thoughts on this quirk of convergent evolution?
So for people who don't know what Asian American is referring to, is like in our news segment, we usually say next
Next
news.
news.
Yeah. so, so what should we do? Should we like call up, like, what do they
We're
say
summoning the
anything?
news kami, the good
Next
news
news.
kami.
News coming, bless the next news, something like that. I don't know.
Bless us.
Yeah.
I just what are your thoughts on this quirk of convergent evolution? Made me laugh so hard today.
Is there anything they say? Because maybe we could use that.
mm,
Yeah.
Probably depends
Interesting.
on the kami. I don't know.
Yeah. Is there?
Um,
We should. Oh, you can make it commie for so many things. We could maybe make a news commie.
we should
Is
make
there?
a news kami.
Is there?
Ah,
Is
that
there
could
a
be one
news
of our
commie
blasphemous
already?
arts.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right.
Oh my
No.
gosh. Okay, this is another quick question from Mario. Asking what Arabic dialect does the Atheist Republic YouTube channel use? I'm currently looking to start learning Arabic, specifically with classical slash modern standard, the version of the Quran and the Hadith, as well as the more modern version that is used in official settings.
Isn't it
Well,
Egyptian? Isn't it always Egyptian? I think people just automatically should go Egyptian always. No,
really?
but go on.
I mean, I don't know these things.
That's what I thought, because I thought like Egyptian Arabic is the one that is the most widespread, and even if that's not your specific Arabic, because people know it, because that's the language of, I don't know, TV series, movies, and
Yeah, cinema.
newspaper and blog posts. So everybody knows it. So that's why it's the most, because it's the most common. It's a de facto one to learn.
Well, I
Yeah,
just learned
here.
something.
Yeah.
Well, okay, in that case, that's very convenient because our current co-host of the Arabic channel is from Egypt, so I'm assuming that's what she speaks, if not modern standard. And the person who hosted the Arabic channel before Dolly was Pamela, and she, I think, is Lebanese. So maybe there was more of a Lebanese version of it. I don't know. To me, I can't tell the difference. So,
Yeah. We should
um,
we should ask our host.
I'm like, what are you saying?
Yeah,
um,
but people in the live chat are confirming what I'm saying. They're saying yes, Egyptian is the
mm,
popular. Yeah, for common, Egyptian is popular for common and casual talk. Okay.
Egypt did have such a golden age of cinema.
That's
Like,
the reason. That's the
we need
reason
to
I
bring
think.
back the Egyptian golden age of cinema. But
Right.
because of all the social restrictions, I actually went down a deep dive the other day of looking at vintage photos of Egypt. And it's shocking how different things are culturally. Like, there was a sign from the 1940s, and it was like a little boy and a little girl, and they're holding these books that have Arabic all over them, and they're kissing on the lips. And
Oh
it
wow.
was an ad for a toy store, and it said like let's kiss and play or something. Like, could you imagine something like that in Egypt now?
Jeez,
No.
no.
Like, I I don't know. That kind of thing is just fascinating to me.
Hmm.
Anyways, Mario is also asking, when will Susanna realize that Shia Confucianism is a false religion and finally convert to the one true religion, Sunni Shintoism? I am
Shit.
standing firm with the progeny of the Prophet Muhammad, okay?
Wait, shouldn't
I'm
it be the
Ahlulay
other way
all the
around?
way, and I will not turn my back on Shia Confucianism. I need your proofs, Mario. I need your evidences,
Hmm.
sir. And then maybe.
Shouldn't it be the other way around? Shouldn't it be like Sunni Confucianism and Shia Shintoism? I mean, based on how rigid and to the letter Confucianism is,
Mm,
I think that should be the Sunni one. I mean, originally Shia and Sunni were the other way around, but based on the way Shia and Sunni is today, I think Confucianism would be more in line with Sunnism, and Shintoism with its whole wishy-washy,
okay, I
woo,
agree with you, but
wooey.
Shia Confucianism is what Asian American came up with, and then that's just
Okay,
what
okay,
stuck.
just that's like okay, okay,
um.
okay.
Oh, and we just got a $10 donation from Secular Rarity. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Secular Rarity.
thank
Uh,
you.
Rarity, if you have a question that you want to ask, just make sure to tag us. Um,
Oh, somebody
and
saying wait, somebody saying the contradiction makes this better though, so that's why the contradiction. Okay, okay,
okay.
yeah.
Adam is saying you just have to have a hunky eye candy Shinto preacher, and Susanna will jump ship. Yes, and I see no problem with this, and I will not deny it. Actually, this is kind of related, and this is a very interesting question, and I love when Armin dives into this kind of a question. So, this is juicy. Armin, please explain to us, why did the Sunni Shia split still go on despite Ali eventually becoming the fourth caliph? Why
Because of
didn't that
Hussein.
solve anything?
Because of Hussein. The Shia Sunni split, I think, is mostly because of Hussein than Ali. I mean, a lot of people. Okay,
For those who
so
don't know who you're talking, like, explain more broadly.
all right. So, but first of all, none of this is confirmed history. Okay, but
Yes.
if any of this is to believed, okay, the split or the original split, okay, that happened started before Muhammad's death, okay, and it was mostly a family dispute between the people that liked Aisha on one side and people who didn't like Aisha on the other side, right? Aisha and her family and the people that were loyal to her family, especially Abu Bakr, on one side, and the people who were part of Muhammad's family, blood family. You know what I mean? Like Muhammad's daughter and the husband. I mean, and Muhammad's cousin. You know, sorry. What is what is it called in English? The son of your
No,
uncle,
he's the son-in-law.
son-in-law. Okay, sorry, my English. Okay, his son-in-law and also the husband of his daughter, right? And also technically the way he treated him like his son, right? And his brother as well. All of these things, but they grew up with each other. Um, I mean, Ali grew up in Muhammad's household, right? But his close family, right? Muhammad, the people that were part of Muhammad's household, which is called Ahlul Bayt, means the people of the house, right? These people were on side, but Muhammad's wife, favorite wife, Aisha, and her family, they had a dispute, and it's over whether Aisha was faithful to Muhammad or not, right? And ever since then, there was a schism between these two groups against each other, and it was just a family dispute. And then after Muhammad's death, that schism continued over into politics, over um, who's supposed to take power, who's supposed to lead the Muslim community, right? And even though, so Ali eventually came to power, and that's the person who today what we call Shias. At that time, we didn't have Sunni. So you're talking about the Sunni Shia split. When Ali was in power, we didn't even have Sunnis and Shias. These were things that were defined many, many years after. Okay, these were just people who supported Ali to become a caliphate and people who didn't. You know, um, but the people who wanted for Ali to become caliph, um, they thought many years of that was lost. They said because Ali managed to maintain his power for only a few years, and then he was killed, and all those years that he should have been in power, in according to Shias, and he wasn't, was lost to the Muslim community because of the betrayal of Abu Bakr, Omar, and Osman, right? Which is actually kind of weird for Shias because the most destructive part, the most chaotic part, caliph was Ali's caliphate. Like Abu Bakr, Omar, and Osman managed to provide some relative of peace and stability, and Ali came into power, and it was constant war. Even though he said he doesn't like war, but it was constant war because there were a lot of tensions about his caliphate. And then when he died, peace was back. Like Muawiyah managed to bring peace to the land. So it wasn't a very good time for him to be, it was very stressful. Um, but he was killed, and a lot of people who are his supporters think that that there was a conspiracy by Muawiyah, which now is considered to be Sunni. They're saying like it was the Kharijites who killed them, but they're saying that there was things behind the scene that, because the Kharijite took a stab at Ali and Muawiyah at the same time, and Muawiyah survived, and people were like, I think it was Muawiyah who planned all of this, right? So we don't know, right? So,
They were
but
in cahoots.
yeah. But none of this discussion over Shia, over like Ali or Muawiyah or Osman, none of this at this point was a Sunni Shia split. All of this was just people disagreeing over who needs to be in power. This was just merely political. We didn't have two religions at that time. We didn't have two sects of Islam at that time. These were just Islam with different within Islam, political disagreements. What is mainly responsible for the beginnings of a birth of an ideology was what happened to Ali's son, Hussein, in Karbala, and his martyrdom. And even at that point in time, it by itself, it didn't start that sect. Okay. Eventually, the Shia split, Shiaism was defined, but what gave birth to it was that martyrdom.
Secular Rarity is saying, I'm feeling a Yah Hussein coming on. Yah
Well,
Hussein.
Susanna is wearing black, so it's fair.
Yeah, exactly. I just realized.
If you guys want me to go into more details over this, like we could let me know. We could have an entire discussion about this, right? And the
no, that you
significance.
should do that on Secular Jihadist. Like,
Yeah.
dive in deep. A few years
Yeah.
ago, you and Ali did like a part 1 and 2 into the Sunni Shia shift.
Yes,
split.
we did.
Maybe you should do a refresh.
Yeah.
Because I find you're so knowledgeable, and I find it so interesting.
Like, I think most people, like, when they think about Islam, they think about Muhammad, Mecca, Hajj, Allah, the Quran, but those are not the first things that should come to your mind when you think about Shia Islam. Okay, and a lot of people think when they think about Shia Islam, the first thing what sets it apart, because the main imam, the first imam in Shia Islam is Ali. They think that if they talk about Shia Islam, Ali maybe should come to their mind. It's not Ali, okay? the main thing that you should think about and focus on when it comes to Shia Islam is Hussein. Is Hussein above all else? Is Hussein above Ali? Is Hussein above Muhammad himself? And is Hussein above Allah himself? Like, I know this is like, most Shia would not want to admit this, but the main fundamental figure, the main fundamental name in the Shia Islam is Hussein, even above Allah's name. And even if they don't admit that, and it's not technically true, is practically that's how it works. Okay. And the main location in Shia Islam is not, people say, oh, the holiest place for Muslims is Mecca, and after that is Medina, and after that is Jerusalem. It's not, for Shia Islam, it's Karbala. That's the holiest place. That's where Hussein was. Hussein's martyrdom happened. Okay, the entire genesis of Shia ideology is around that story of Hussein's martyrdom.
I kind of want to go to Karbala just like out of curiosity. It won't happen, but I'm just so curious. Anyways, so next question is from D. Boudreau asking, in the Gita, the practice of yoga is explained as detachment from the senses, but uses words such as desire, cravings, pleasure, attachment, and grief, which are more like feelings. Once you've successfully discarded all that, you reach peace, bliss, joy, serenity, which are also feelings. How does one stop feeling things in order to feel things? It seems as if they failed the first part. What is your understanding?
I don't know. That's a very good point.
I don't have a good understanding of these things. I haven't studied. I have studied these concepts, but it's been a long time, and I'm not very well versed. I think part of this is like linguistic. I think part of it might be a flaw of translation, but also maybe when we're talking about these concepts, they might be intended to be referred to or understood in a larger or more metaphysical sense than just your first person experience of any given emotion. Yeah, like I think we might be taking something that's supposed to be more esoteric and abstract and bringing it down and saying, oh, well, you're still feeling a thing. I don't know.
Okay, I'm just gonna try to steelman this. Okay, maybe because there's no way to describe it. So, for example, maybe peace is the way to describe like lack of the existence of something else. But because, like, for example, when you're like, oh, I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna finally be at peace. I mean, technically, you're not gonna experience peace because you're dead. But that's the best way that you could have to describe not experiencing stress. Yes, you're not going to experience peace.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's a lack of stress, right? So maybe because there's no other way to describe it. I don't know.
Yeah, it was interesting. People had their own, who come from traditions, more Eastern traditions, had their own feedback to Dee's question on the Patreon page. So Asian American said, so in Taoism, we have a similar practice. In order for the river to be clear, one must not do anything and wait for the sediment to still of its own accord. I noticed in the height of my grinder days, I would swipe profile after profile looking for attention. I just like that he threw that in. In Taoist culture of Gita, a Taoist critique of Gita is that the chase to free yourself from all desires, you have become extreme renunciants, meaning you're renouncing something, you're refusing something. So you, in the Gita's approach to free yourself from desire, you're refusing too much. Buddhism critiques the Hindu sannyasis in their extreme renunciance and advocate for the middle path. My critique is always somewhere in the middle of desire and serenity.
Wait, there are Taoist and Buddhist critiques of the Gita. Is that what you're
Yeah.
telling me? That's amazing. That's amazing. Can we study? I wish I had time. I wish I had the privilege of having enough time to be able to do a deep dive on Taoist critiques of the Gita. That sounds fascinating. God damn it. I wish I had like 10 lifetimes to be
I
able to learn
know,
all of
you really
it.
need that.
God damn it.
um
Wow. Okay.
yeah. I don't know, these are interesting questions. And then I mean, of course, the most obvious answer is that we're too small to comprehend and understand.
True, true.
um so next question is from Secular Sakai, who is asking the I feel like this is supposed to be a French word, but I cannot pronounce French. So I
Nobody
apologize.
can. Nobody can.
Nobody. The Bougainville may soon be the newest nation in the world to be recognized by the United Nations in 2027 after winning their long fought war of independence against Papua New Guinea and having a referendum in 2019. Given the island's poverty and animosity towards Australian aligned Papua New Guinea, do you believe they will agree to host a Chinese military base like the Solomon Islands? Or that Papua New Guinea might even consider it to scare Bougainville? So I was looking into this today because I wasn't familiar, and I didn't come up with any answers that were relevant to this question. Instead, I just did a deep dive on the the ancestry of the Melanesian people because it's fascinating.
You
For
got
40
distracted.
minutes, I was researching the differences between like the Havanese and the Melanesians, and I was like, I haven't come to any conclusion.
Wait, okay, let me try to understand the question. So,
I can explain it a little bit.
yeah, because we have had recent news over, countries in that region, as I mean, Solomon Islands, given apparently allowing China to do a military base. But this is so interesting because it's like it's such a tiny little country, right? But if they allow for China to all of a sudden come and do military bases in them, just that by itself is such an overreach by China, and it's going to give them such a foothold in so many sensitive places. Just because it shows how in international law, just land masses in huge bodies of water, you just being able to have a footprint on it. Land masses are so important. You know what I mean? This is why China is building like making their own islands, right? Because everything, all the control over water is dependent on which land masses is yours and which land masses aren't, right? And that's why this is such a tiny little country like Solomon all of a sudden could be the difference maker over how much a major influence over how much China's influence around that region is, right? And this is why Australia is panicking, right? And people are like, Solomon Island, why are you doing this? Stop.
It's
Right?
like
So
the size of a pinky, and there's like big Australian. It's like, stop it, I'm shaking.
by the way, this is why I don't understand why people keep saying like the world order that we have is keeping the powerful more powerful when when a country as small as the way it has to some extent, more than ever before, equalize the power of smaller countries relative to bigger countries. I mean, it hasn't equalized it completely at all, but historically, it has equalized it more than ever before. The fact that every country in the United Nations has votes as much as I know like some countries are in the Security Council, and that makes them more powerful, but over everything else, the vote is equal, right? So, I mean, a country as big as the United States has the same vote as a country like Solomon Islands. That's very sick. That's I mean, again, I'm not saying they have been equalized, but relatively, historically, it has never been more equal, right? And that it shows how powerful this has made some countries, where Australia has to beg a country like some Solomon Island not to do this to them, right? So, but yeah, I don't about those other countries. Which country was it? Was it JPEG or PNG? Oh no, PNG. Papua New Guinea.
GIF.
No, yeah, no, Papua New
Papa
Guinea.
New.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about those. Like, I think they're gonna, based on the very limited information I have, I think they're just gonna wait and see. Oh, the effects. Like, I mean, they might like this. They might like to see, like, Solomon Island is like this little, um, princes now that all these, other princes are like fighting for. So they're like, like they like it. Like, I
It's
mean,
like
I
the
don't know. It's
hottest girl at the ball, and
yeah,
they like
exactly. So maybe
all
maybe
these
the other.
suitors coming to the feet. Oh, princess, pick me.
Like, so maybe some other countries in that region will be like, I like this, come fight over us as well. Like, they might
Sitting
like
there
culture.
watching, like, I want some special treatment.
Oh, PK, don't say that. That's not very good, PK. Don't put that in live chat. That's not nice.
No, I gotta
Okay.
delete that. That is a big
Yeah.
no-no for YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so next question is from Asian American, and this is very interesting. Should a nation confer its citizenship based on blood, like France or China, the birth on soil, like the USA, or tax contribution and investments, like Turkey, or years of residency, or a battery of civics tests? Well, in America, like it's birth. Well, it's birth on soil is one path, and there's years of residency and civics tests and all these other things. So it's not necessarily like one or the other. Always, I prefer birth on soil. Possibly, I don't know much about the construction of citizenship or path towards citizenship regarding tax contribution and investments. So I don't know enough about that formulation to be able to give much of an opinion. But I think birth on soil is so much better because it can confer statehood to someone versus there are so many instances around the world of countries that only do citizenship based on blood, and it basically deprives people of statehood, millions of people of statehood. So generations upon generations of people are stateless because even though they're born in a country and they have lived there for generations for various reasons, and this happens across different nations, they are not recognized as citizens of that country. So I believe this is the situation for many Korean descendants in Japan who have lived in Japan for like 5 generations. They still have no privileges of citizenship based on their blood and ethnicity. Like that doesn't seem fair to me. But they're still like contributing and participating in society. Same thing happened with the Bidun in Kuwait, who were made stateless when Kuwait became a nation state. And they're basically treated as worse than second-class citizens. They're not allowed to vote. They're not allowed to own property or land. They're not recognized as citizens of the state, even though this is where they have lived for generations upon generations. So how are you supposed to help promote that people continue to participate in your society when they are systematically excluded from it? For the Badoon, like how do you build a life for yourself, in your family, in your community, when you are systematically discriminated against and you're not even recognized as a full member of that nation? I think that doesn't encourage good participation. And I think it would help promote more multiculturalism across nations. Like I think it would promote like good and positive immigration, which I'm a huge advocate for. I think more people need to be immigrating around the world. Like Japan needs to be encouraging immigration as much as freaking possible, right? There are other nations that are amazing where I would love to live, but it's just not a smart thing for me to do because there's no path towards citizenship. What do you think, Armin?
Okay, I think it should be based on. I don't think it should be based on birth because all the problems of being able to, if you could do based on years of residency, that would already address. Like if you're born on I think birth on soil is just such an instant thing that it just opens the door to a whole bunch of crazy situations or we could just avoid, and nobody has to suffer because you could just do years of residency. If you're born in the United States and as a baby you've been there for like, I don't know, 5 years of residency will already cover you, so that's fine, right? So years of residency is fine. And I think like r- citizenship of parents, I think, should be one.
Yes.
um, Especially because the utility of that is to keep families together, right? So citizenship of parents, even if you're not born on the soil, should make you citizen. Years of residency should be helpful in making you a citizen. Um, but also, I mean, I was gonna say skill set, but those are for residentship, right? Like if you want to include like people, like bringing in people that are have the right skills and talent and contributions that your country needs specifically at the time, but that would be mostly a criteria for residentship, which could then turn into a pathway for citizenship. I think regardless of the pathway, there needs to be a test, a value test, right? um,
Even if it's
for
residency, you said like, oh, that would work for infants. An
no,
infant can't
no.
take a
Yeah,
civics
yeah, you're
test.
right. You're right. If it's new immigrants and they're resident, I think
Yeah.
there needs to be a value test done for that, right? I don't have a problem with investments. So people say like, oh, like I saw in the live chat, I think who was it? Like investments, as long as they pass the value test and criminal record test, people, I think investments is a good way because it's bringing resources to the people of your country, right? Especially for countries who
Mm-hmm.
need it, right? So people like, oh, it shouldn't be based on investments because it's unfair. Why should you be able to get a citizenship if you have money? I mean, the harm, what's instead of focusing on why this person is getting something more than other people when getting ahead of everybody else that doesn't have the money, why are you not focusing on the fact that the money that they're investing could go to people who need it in the country, right? This citizenship by investment has been a savior to a lot of poor countries
That's true.
who need the investment, right? So people are like, oh, this is too capitalist. I'm like, exactly. Right? It's like, why, what's wrong with that, right? I mean, as long as the person who's doing the investment is like screened for criminal record and also for done a value test and everything like that, and it's not going to be a harm to the country, why not welcome the money and reward that person with a citizenship? I don't see the cost associated with that, other than our desire for all things to be equal, or for things to be equal, or sense of fairness and stuff like that, right? But if you actually care about people, then you would welcome the money. Yeah.
Okay. Well, guys, this is why you come to us. We have all the answers. um, so this is a question I wanted to address because I actually know a little bit about this. So, Asian American is asking when Bruce committed self-immolation on the steps of the Supreme Court on Earth Day in the manner of Tibetan Buddhists protesting for Tibetan freedom. How much do you think demonstrations of self-immolation may impact people's perception of a cause? So, for those who don't know, I'm going to read a little bit about what this is so that we just kind of like all understand what we're talking about here. And then I will discuss this. So, um, here's from Religion News Service. When Bruce, a 50-year-old climate activist and Buddhist, set himself on fire on the front of the U.S. Supreme Court last week, prompting national conversation about his motivation and whether he may have been inspired by Buddhist monks who self-immolated in the past to protest government atrocities. So apparently he was a photographer and he sat down and set himself on fire, and police were unable to put out the fire. And investigators who spoke to Associated Press on the condition of anonymity said that they did not immediately locate a manifesto or note at the scene, and officials are still working to determine a motive. On Saturday, Kriti Kanko, a Zen Buddhist priest who described herself as Bruce's friend, shared an emotional post on her public Twitter account saying that his self-immolation was, quote, not suicide, but a deeply fearless act of compassion to bring attention to the climate crisis. She added that Bruce had been planning the act for at least a year. She wrote, when Bruce, I am so moved. She got a sympathetic responses as well as backlash. So I don't know. This is a very tricky question. Honestly, how much does demonstrations of self-immolation impact people's perception of a cause? I don't think it necessarily does a good job, because I don't think that this got as much coverage as would warrant losing one's life over, to be honest. I think I don't know. I think it makes people more curious about the person itself than perhaps their cause. Like, who is this person that's willing to martyr themselves? Like, they get maybe more focused on the individual than what they're trying to draw attention to. Maybe that's just me personally. I don't know. I feel like when it comes to the Tibetan thing, there was more of a pattern to it. There's more consistency to it, so it seemed like more of a consistent political action. I don't know. It's difficult. Armin, what do you think?
I think you're right. I think because it's such a radical move, and people might question the sanity of the person who've done that, and rather than make the cause seem something of a radical movement, rather than something, like focus on. I mean, you would expect stuff like this from people who are in a cult, maybe, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like it might not, I don't know, actually. I'm just guessing, right? So I don't know what the effect is going to be, but I think it might come across that, oh, this was this movement and his members and his goals are like a radical thing. That's not necessarily people with the best reasoning, reasonable assessment of what's the right path forward for their cause. So maybe actually might do your cause more damage than good. But again, I am not certain about anything I just said. I'm just wondering out loud.
Yeah, it's obviously like a deeply, deeply radicalized thing to do. And
Yeah.
honestly, I think it's comparable to someone doing a self-deletion bombing. Like, the only difference is that I like usually in self-immolations, it's only you who's harmed, right? So there's a big difference there. But in terms of my understanding of what a level a person has to be at to be able to undertake such an action, to me they're just as radicalized as like the woman who blew herself up to kill the 3 Chinese professors for Baluchistan, you know.
Just to be responsible, by the way, guys, if you're thinking, about, I think it's important when you talk about these things,
Mm-hmm.
if anybody's like watching this and thinking about these things, please talk to a professional. We're not mental health professionals, and we're not even, with regards to this, we have very little experience. We just, it's if you're ever considering anything like this, you need to talk to a professional, a mental health expert. And I'm pretty, like, I don't know what the resources are, but I'm pretty sure if you Google it, it would be the first thing that shows up. So please, like, do not make any decisions based on anything me or Susanna are saying. Yeah.
Secular Sakai is saying self-immolation is not a good strategy. There are more effective ways to touch on people's empathy. It is just too drastic and jarring for many.
Yes. Also, it's not just yourself that you're harming. You're like really doing major damage to anybody that cares about you. So yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's not highlighted enough. Oh, and Secularity is saying absolutely, in terms of talking about the importance of reaching out to people. saying Secular Therapy Project is one that is super valuable. Yes, thank you for the plug, Secularity. Guys, if you are looking for therapists in your area who are secular or maybe have experience with dealing with people going through a secular transition in their life, check out the Secular Therapy Project. They have lots of good resources specifically for your needs. So good reminder. Thank you. So next question is from, oh shoot, I just undid it. No. Give me a second. Okay, well, I'll pull up this question in the meantime. Okay. Mario is saying, I think we can confidently call the Russian invasion of Ukraine failed. Even if the Russians took some of the eastern regions, they failed to topple the Ukrainian government or take the capital and many of the major cities they were after. What do you think the aftermath of this will be for Russia? Will Putin's government even survive? Will they have to completely sell out to China if they want to keep their ruined economy functioning?
Are you just gonna leave that to me? Just leave me with the hard questions. Predicting Russia's future.
I'm just handing it to you on a platter. Go for it. You got it. You got it.
Yeah, coming up with a prediction for the future of Russia's economy. Yeah, sure, of course. That's easy. I'll just have it right here. Okay. Honestly, it depends on so many different factors, right? One of them being, the price of oil and gas, which is very hard to predict, right? Also, the reliance on China hasn't been as good as Russia was hoping. Like, okay, so the understanding was that, oh yeah, the economy could, suffer a lot, but don't worry, China is here to come out. Everything seems to be on sale in Russia, and China is going to step in and buy everything on a discount. And the problem with that, I mean, the good thing about that is at least like Russia is going to get the help it needs. But the downside is that China is going to have a lot of control over Russia's economy, and Russia is going to turn into China's, proxy, or little bitch or something like that, as people are describing it. But the thing is that it has proven to be not as China seems to not be moving in as aggressively as a lot of people assumed, because all the companies that would be involved in moving in don't see the benefit in moving in as aggressively as a lot of us thought, right? Because I don't think people understand how small Russia's economy is compared to Europe, United States, and other, and Japan and South Korea and stuff like that. Because and China has a lot of trade with them, and the companies that are involved with these trades, they don't want to potentially risk violating international laws, or sanctions at the expense of losing all those other markets. Like, a lot of people think like, oh, it's China and Russia on one side and the United States and the European Union on the other side. If you look at, the trade volumes, is Russia on one side, and China would be more on the side of EU and United States and Japan and Australia and South Korea. Like, the wolf warrior diplomacy part makes it seem like they're the opposition, but money speaks louder than words, right? And money suggests that China is actually on the other side of all of this, right? Russia is too small of an economy for them to be so ideological about this and sacrifice their potential customers and buyers in these great economies, over standing strong with Russia. And even if there's a lot of things on sale in Russia, I mean, and some Chinese companies are moving in and buying stuff, but it's not going to be as aggressive, because if it's going to put them in trouble with doing trades with other companies that are much, much bigger, giant international companies that are European or American or Japanese or South Korean, or Australian, they were like, you know what, forget it. Like, I don't want. I'd rather just make sure that we're in in a in our best behavior and be able to have a piece of all this giant trade that is going around the world, right? So that one thing about China. I mean, however, with all that being said, China will have stronger leverage over Russia than before, just not as much. But it's just I'm just saying it's not happening as much as people expected. Okay. Um. Okay. So when it comes to Putin's government surviving, what's happening behind the scenes and in Kremlin is much more of a lot more hidden, like because the people in power in Russia, their power is now more, or their influence is now a more determining factor on what happens to Putin than the crushing of Russia's economy, right? Because the people are in power in Russia, they are going to be able to maintain their control independently from what happens to Russian people. I mean, look at the Islamic Republic of Iran, right? Like it's not like the Russian people that have that much leverage over what happens to Putin, right? And it's very interesting because Russia has now some shows, some YouTubers and some people bloggers that they're sending to Iran to show how Iran has survived years of sanctions, right? And the way that Iranian people have coped with it.
Wow.
And they're like, look, it's not impossible. Like if Iranians have figured out not only how to cope with sanctions, they actually have found ways to become even stronger under sanctions. So if Iran can do it, Russia can do it as well, which is very
You
interesting that they're
should do a
highlighting.
secular jihadist stream about the
Oh.
Russian bloc in Iran. Like I need a deep dive into so
Yeah,
serious.
okay. Yeah,
Please.
but I'm just yeah, okay, sure, maybe. All right, we'll look into it. Okay, but I'm just saying that um the people that so it, Russian people suffering is gonna have less influence on whether or not Putin is going to stay in power, what compared to the main decision makers, the oligarchs, specific types of oligarchs, because the oligarchs are not all, a lot because the people a lot of oligarchs in the past couple of years, and Putin has replaced them with his with the people that are loyal to him and are his ideological allies, right? Like even people who used to have a lot of power in Russia have been replaced with some new people, right? And these people are very dogmatic about their ideologies, right? Like and um, but and they would like to stay in power, but you can see that how Putin is openly replacing certain people that are not in line with him, and he's doing it publicly, right? It was very telling how he talked down on his head of intelligence, right? I don't know if
Mhm.
people understand, the head of intelligence in every country is arguably the person that you have to be the most worried about. Okay, if you want to be careful not to get backstabbed, right, or not have a coup, or not be secretly find people having secretly find ways to replace you, right? So I think those people, like the head of intelligence Russia, feeling like they're under attack and threatened, that has a more say over Putin, that has a more danger to Putin's position than the Russian economy crashing, right? And what's happening to them and what leverages they have and what they can do is more hidden. Like like Russia's economy is like what happens, or whether it survives or crashes, that happens in front of all our eyes, right? But whether the people that are working in the intelligence agencies in Russia, if they want to replace Putin, if they can, or if they want to, okay, that is such that is that is not we don't have access to that information, right? That is not as transparent, and that is more of a determining factor, I think. So that's why it's so hard to predict what's going to happen to Putin. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, no one knows what the future holds. But yeah, it's obviously very complex. Um, Now it is actually time for me to drop off, and you will take
Okay.
over. The
All
Persian
right.
Empire rises once again. Speaking of, Mario asked, As a Greek, should I be scared that everyone speaks Persian around me?
Okay, so let me, before you go, ask your questions live on air. So I'm just gonna post a link for people to hop over. I know there's still more Patreon
Yes,
questions.
members can come up and ask their questions live on air. We had a bunch
Yes,
of really good live member questions last week.
okay, but it was too long because I don't want this to turn into like an entire debate, right? I want, if anybody comes over, I want them to ask the questions quickly, and then we answer it, and then we move on, because I still have Patreon questions that I need to answer as well, right?
You got to set some
So,
boundaries.
yes, exactly. But okay, so I said oh, I can't spell. Ask your questions. Oh my god, I can't spell. Ask your questions live on air, and then I'm posting the link. 1 second. Okay, there we go.
I will be
Members,
in the live
post it.
chat and I will be listening as I go do more work for us. So,
Yeah. All right. So the link is there. If any, only members can see the link, and the link is in the community tab of the Atheist Republic YouTube channel. And if you're a YouTube member, you should be able to see it, and you should be able to hop over if you want to. Okay. All right,
nice.
Susanna. Yeah.
Well, so long. I had fun with you today. And I had fun
Mm.
with everyone in the live chat. Thank you for some good questions and some hilarity, in the live chat in the community. I love it. I will see you guys for the news show this week in 2 weeks. And before I go,
2
please
days.
like the video.
2 days.
2 days.
2
Did I
weeks.
say 2 weeks?
Yes. Yes, and like the video.
Please like the video. Okay. Bye,
All right.
guys.
Bye. All right. Okay, so we see Arjun is already up. I'm just gonna. Hi, Arjun.
Yeah, man.
Hello. Hey.
So good to see you finally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just got the membership today. I'm just so glad I could join the community. I think Susanna. I also emailed Susanna about the atheist communities in India.
Mhm.
I don't know how why it is so tough. Since I'm able to see public forums of Pakistani atheist communities, and I don't know what's the issue with India. Uh,
Right.
I'm sure that the ground reality is not that bad, but I'm it's so sad to see that it's not like you're not able to put that publicly. Anyways,
Yeah. So for people who don't know what Arjun is referring to, because the Indian government, the BJP, the police, and a couple of high courts in India has come after us and our members in India, we have had to make Atheist Republics consulates, which is our local groups in India. We had to make them hidden because of all the tension and all the heat that Atheist Republic members are getting in India. So Arjun is saying it's amazing that we have all of this for Pakistan, but for the Indian one, we had to keep them hidden. Which is sad that that's where it has come to. Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, now I think there'll be a lot of questions on the right end of the spectrum. So I just want to ask you a question on the left end. So I don't know if you know this. So there is an elected communist government in India. There were actually a couple more, but now there's only one government in my neighboring state of Kerala. And I don't know if it's something to do with communism or not, but there's always seems to be some kind of violence, heightened level of violence in communist regimes, whether it's democratically elected or whether it's autocratic. Like, is there any specific reason as to why um, communist revolutions always had to be violent, or even if they are elected, even if they have the support of people, why there is heightened violence in these states?
I don't know if they're always violent. So I don't know if this is true, but the argument is okay. Communism requires a lot of centralized control and authority from the people who are. So the goal is to remove centralized. The goal of communism is to remove centralized control, but to be able to do that, the transition period requires a lot of centralized control, a lot of power from top down power, a lot of maintaining of and meddling in everything, right? And the hope is that the people will just accept it, okay? And based on, you know, the communist theory, like this is the best thing for the people. People accept all the meddling. People accept all the control, the top-down control, because, you know, it would just lead to their lives being better. But given that they don't, you would have to get involved in making, you know, eventually, even if it's not spelled out in communist theory, because effectively it turns into the government getting more forcefully involved in people's lives. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
that
so they
force,
eventually become the problem that they wanted to solve.
exactly. So the force requires violence, because how else would you force people to, you know? Because, you know, the other political model is just like the political model that we want is to let people decide what they want, right? But communism, at the heart of it, understands what's good for it claims to understand what's good for people, even if they don't understand it themselves, right?
Yeah, I
it
think I
wants
think
to it wants to
communist
force them to be free. But you're going.
yeah. So the ideology basically assumes that people are dumb. They don't know what they want.
um
It's the government pushing what they think they need,
yeah, I
acting as
mean,
the elder brother, right?
right, but like, okay, so I mean, I don't want to say dumb, but it's true that people on average are not as intelligent as they should be or as educated as they should be. But even if that is the case, the best economic, like, we don't believe in democracy because we think people make good decisions. Okay, people sometimes make bad decisions. People many times make bad decisions, right? But we believe in democracy because on average we have seen that that model just produced the best results. Like, we're not putting this is not an ideological belief in democracy because we're putting our faith into people making good decisions, right?
It's the best of
We
available
have
choices.
Yes, exactly. We have seen the data, we have seen the track record, and we have seen when, you know, other than certain principles, other than like human rights related issues, like, I don't know, slavery, discrimination, women rights, I don't know, torture and stuff like that. You limit, other than human rights related stuff, you put that in your constitution and you don't let the majority decide on that. But other than that, letting the people decide, um, through a representative democratic model. Not even, so for example, we know that the direct democracy doesn't work, but the representative democratic model, that lets people decide the role of the government beyond these fundamental human rights, has proven to have a really good track record in producing the best results, right? So we're not believing it, like, it's not like, oh, democracy just sounds so beautiful, it just sounds so pretty to let the people decide. Like, I don't think we should have an ideological defense or an emotional defense of democracy. We're like, no, scientifically we should look at the data and we see this has the best track record, and that's why we're defending it.
Okay, I mean, yeah. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, yeah,
Very
no,
happy
thank
to
you.
become a member. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for coming up. Come here again next time. It's fun talking to you. Oh, Ash, I see that you are trying to come up, but it says device not connected. Oh, now it's connected. Hi, Ash. Hello? Oh, Ash? Wake up. Hello? Hello? Ash? 1 2 3, 1 2 3. Unmute your mic.
Hello,
Testing,
Armin.
test.
It looks like I have
Yeah.
some trouble connecting to the audio. I'll just try again. I'm so sorry about
No,
this.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. It's fine. I hear you.
I'm
Now
actually
I
not
hear.
able to hear you. That's the issue. I'll
Oh,
just
you
try
can't
to,
hear me.
yeah,
Okay.
redo this entire thing. All right, sorry.
Okay, it's okay. It's okay. Okay. Let me go to Patreon questions. Okay. Okay. So another Patreon question: What are your thoughts on the new Prime Minister of Pakistan? Is he and his party, PML, going to be better or worse compared to Imran Khan and the PTI? Okay, so I don't know much about the new Prime Minister. I just know that, the removal of Imran Khan, me and Harris Sultan had some disagreement over the process. I think right now, the process of removal of Imran Khan is going to have more of an influence over the future of Pakistan and whether people are going to be okay with that or sit by or not, than exactly how the new prime minister is going to behave. I think it's still for a while things are going to be around whether or not this removal was legitimate at all to begin with, right? But to be honest, the new prime minister himself, I don't know much about. I just know more about Imran Khan and the bad decisions that he has made. It's really based on the decisions that Imran Khan has made. It's hard for me to believe that the new prime minister is going to be worse. The new prime minister is going to potentially be better, but that by itself, I think it's going to be better, like just because how bad Imran Khan was. But I'm still don't think I'm still not sure whether or not this was a good decision. It might lead to more chaos, even if he is a better prime minister. But the will of the people was not respected, even if it was done in a constitutional way. Like the process was legal and it was constitutional, so the law was not violated. But the fact that some people will say, well, maybe the constitution in Pakistan, there's an issue with it if the legal process has managed to put somebody in power that is not the decision of the people. So maybe the constitution needs to be amended, right? I don't know. But we did a huge deep dive on this issue on the Secular Jihadist channel. I had Harris Sultan on as a guest. So if you go and search for the falling of Imran Khan with Harris Sultan, that discussion, I think it was the most nuanced discussion I've ever seen. Like, I know it was our show, so I'm biased, but I have watched a lot of discussions on this, and I think we had the most nuanced discussion about this issue on the Secular Jihadists. So search for that, the falling of Imran Khan with Harris Sultan, and watch it. I think it was very well received. A lot of people really enjoyed it. Even some people who find the topic boring were surprised of how found that discussion of it very interesting. Okay, so if Susanna is in the background, if she notices anything in the live chat that I need to address, please let me know. Okay, so we have a few more people that are up. Oh, Ibn Riyam is here. Ibn Riyam and Secular Sakai. So let's go with Ibn Riyam first. Hi, Ibn Riyam.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Oh, you can. Perfect.
Hey.
Yeah. Hey, how are you doing? It's just the quick question, just in relation to the French elections that have recently happened. I was just wondering what your thought with Marine Le Pen. A lot of the second round votes that she received were actually from the far left candidate. Who previously voted for the far left candidate in the first round. So, what would you think about her polling highly amongst the left?
Okay, so the far left voted for her, but also there's a lot of the left that voted for Macron. So I just want to make sure that we don't condemn the entirety of the left, because a lot of the left that hates Macron voted for Macron to keep her out. And I think you could correct me if you think I'm wrong about this. I think a lot of far left voted for her not because they're for her, but because they're anti-Macron. What do you think?
Correct. Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, one of the biggest vote losses that she received was when she started talking about banning the hijab in public. That was actually one of the biggest vote losses she received. If she moderated her views on Muslims, I think she could have won the elections.
Really? Because the gap seems to be bigger than a lot of people anticipated.
Yeah, but in the polling, she was doing quite well up until she continued to, because she actually said that she was going to drop the hijab ban from her policies, and that's what raised her polling. Because in France, if you start making Islam or anti-Muslim policies, your vote's going to drop significantly in France, because the Muslims are not unlike popular perception might perceive. Muslims are actually they're quite liked in France. I think it was a poll done in 2019 by one of the major polling agencies. It showed that 75% of French people had a positive view of Muslims. So that's an overwhelming majority of people. So anything that is perceived as anti-Muslim, you're going to lose significant amounts of votes. So if she moderated her views, she would have been much closer, if not possibly, she could have won the elections, in my opinion.
Well, that's scary, isn't it? Because, I mean, as much as I am against her bigotry, I am more concerned about her anti-European Union and anti-NATO stance. I mean, I am against bigotry, let me be clear, but I think when it comes to the damage to the world, that is more consequential, right? I mean, that would be damage to French Muslims, right? Which is unfortunate. But the other one is the damage to the entire goddamn planet, right? So that means that if she was just a little bit, maybe she should be more bigoted. Maybe we should hope for her bigotry to increase, so that the French don't vote for her, so that we could say. So basically, the French people could basically vote, like put that the whole world in at risk because she's less bigoted. If she becomes less bigoted.
Correct. But the thing is, everyone in France, apart from Macron, even on the left, they are pretty much kind of anti-EU to an extent. I mean, they won't say it out loud because they know it's going to be a vote loser. But to an extent, they have, they have kind of hinted that they're not as pro-EU as, say, Macron is. So that's slightly concerning. But yeah, that seems to be the instinct in France, and there seems to be a big push against liberalism. Especially, there's a lot of tankies in France. I don't know if you're aware. There's loads of them, and they want just the West to burn, essentially. So the Western order to collapse, and then for other countries to kind of merge up and take that position over. But yeah, that's why she got a lot of the votes. That's why it was surprising that even someone like her, who's pretty much far right, but has moderated her position compared to her father to an extent, can still poll 41% of the polling. And a lot of her votes were actually from the overseas territories. So these were, some of them were Muslim majority that voted in her favor, like 60-70% compared to Macron because of the vaccine mandates. That Macron published. Yeah.
What is happening in France?
So even in Muslim majority, these are overseas like territories, like Mayotte, for example, which is 97% Muslim. 60% of them voted for Marine Le Pen because they were forced to take vaccines. And also in the black majority overseas departments, they voted overwhelmingly for Marine Le Pen because she was anti-vaccine, whereas Macron was pro-vaccine.
Okay, well, how can we address this? Like, what is the solution to this? Like, I think like maybe the centralization of power in Europe needs to move away from just France and Germany, so that a change in the leadership of just one country doesn't like undermine the entire thing. You know, to such a degree. You know what I mean? Maybe
I agree,
like,
but yeah. All the countries are very. I mean, in terms of power, either their population is too small or their economies are too weak, even if their population is high enough to compete with France and Germany. And I think this is the major issue in Europe at the moment.
By the way, if she like banned, what happened? Oh, Ibrahim fell off. I was just thinking like a ban on hijab and complete ban on hijab. I'm not talking about like schools. Or the government, but a complete ban on hijab in France. Oh, hey.
Hello. Sorry. So yeah, sorry, I accidentally cut off. You're right, but I didn't hear what you said. Yeah,
I was saying a complete ban of hijab in France. Wouldn't that cause like a civil war or something? Like, I'm not saying it would, but I'm just saying like, wouldn't that like? I mean, I think 4 or 5% of France is Muslim, isn't it?
It's more than that. It's about 9%. But a lot of them, like I would say, about 5% of them are like they're completely irreligious, so they don't really practice the faith at all. And it's the like 4% who have become very religious. They've gone in the opposite direction and become very religious. So yeah.
Oh yeah, Susanna is pointing at like YouTube. Yes, we're not against vaccines. We're just talking about other people's attitudes. Okay, like yeah, we're like just because we got to strike for this.
Yeah. It's mainly minorities in especially the overseas departments that are against these, vaccines, etc. It's not.
But
in France
Susanna,
itself.
we need to clarify that we are because we got a strike for this, because if we talk about this is dangerous for our channel. So I'm just trying to clarify to the channel, to YouTube gods, that we are not spreading any misinformation. We're just talking about other people's opinions on the matter. Okay, so but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just mentioning, a significant proportion of Muslims in France are completely secular, because they come from countries like Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, which already had a secular influence in those countries already. But you still have the other half who have become ultra religious, like Salafi. They've gone in the opposite direction. So I mean, you've seen that in the UK as well. I've seen that with some Muslims becoming completely secular, and then the rest are becoming ultra religious as a kind of it's like the opposite direction essentially.
Okay, one last question before I want to move on to other people. But do you think the immigrants in France, do you think they're I hear something.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Just mute.
Yeah, just mute you before I. Okay, I'll mute you when I finish this. Do you think the immigrants in France, on average, based on what you've seen, are they pro EU or anti EU? Here, I'll unmute you.
They are overwhelmingly pro EU. Yes.
Okay, then that's the solution then. Okay, so I'm figuring out how to fix France. More immigration.
maybe that might be the case. But the white kind of G side theory, that it actually originated from France. So that'll be pushed increasingly if this kind of continues to happen. But these far right candidates, they can't. If they just push far right narratives, they can only get 20-25%. It's only when they kind of moderate the views that they can get up to 35-40% of votes. So there's the most French people are not racist, they're not bigoted towards other people. So it's difficult for these guys. They're very much liberals like us. So it's very difficult for candidates to poll high in Western European countries.
Yeah, I just hope that they keep being as bigoted as they are instead of hiding it, so that they can't come to power. Because if they know the results, all they have to do is just hide their agenda until they get elected. So that's the problem.
Completely agree.
Oh, you completely
completely
agree.
agree.
Okay, cool.
Completely agree. Yeah. Sorry about the
all right.
audio issues today. I can't get my headphones kind of connected. No worries.
No worries. No, I really enjoy your opinions. By the way, before I go to the next person, can you actually email me, because we were supposed to Oxymoron and wanted to come over and have a discussion over Kashmir with you. So
yes, I will send that across. I've just been so busy past week. I run my own business, and I've just been so busy. I'm just coming to work now. I'm kind of all over the place. But the email across, and perfect. Yeah, no worries.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, cool. Talk to you later. Okay, Secular Sakai.
Hey, how you doing, Armin?
Hey, how are you?
Oh, not too bad. So I wanted to just come on right quick and ask about something that I actually don't know if Atheist Republic, if you guys have mentioned this on the show recently or not, but I feel like it hasn't gotten a lot of coverage in the news because of just other things like the Ukraine situation going on right now. So I wanted to ask about your thoughts on the current economic crisis in Sri Lanka and the union protests that are happening, citizen protests against the president, the Rajapaksa family, and whether or not if you have been keeping up with it, if you think it might go some way similar to the economic crises with Greece or Venezuela, or if it could even have the potential to lead to a return to civil war.
I actually haven't. I mean, I've been following it a little bit and seen it's amazing how bad things have gotten, and how just a small family has so much control over so much in the entire country. And but I haven't thought about the consequences of how, I don't know much about the situation, and to be able to come up with prediction and its consequences. Why, do you have any predictions or ideas about the consequences?
Well, I don't want to pretend like I'm an expert in Sri Lankan politics, because I only know what I've read and done, cursory research online. But from what I have seen, it looks like, at least at this time, which makes sense because it's in the middle of a major economic crisis where people are storming pharmacies and government buildings just for medicine, for example. The government is unsurprisingly polling very, very low among the people,
Mhm.
like less than 10%, I think. And so the real question just comes down to whether or not that has the kind of social mobility to translate into a regime change, hopefully a peaceful one, or if the current ruling family, because they've ruled for, it's been different members of the same family for several decades now, if they are able to hold on to control of the country. I think the real issue now is the name brand. The name of the family has really been dragged through the mud with these recent woes.
So I guess if I wanted to, I haven't done an analysis on this, but if I wanted to, one thing I would look at is how much, the ruling families control. How deep does it go? Like, are there institutions that keep everything above water in the country independent? Like, independent, because like looking at different countries, like for example, if you look at Libya, right, one reason why the toppling of the regime was very unsuccessful is because all these institutions, like, first of all, there were no other institutions, and the ones that there were so deeply, basically were part of the government, and so deeply that there was no alternatives for them. When you remove the top, you're removing everything, right? You don't have independent institutions, right? And one reason, for example, why after the Islamic Republic revolution a lot of things eventually managed to pick up and continue is because Khomeini figured out that he shouldn't like topple everything, right? Like, there was a lot of independent institutions, independent from revolution, that remained operational, including the military. Like, so he was smart enough to not do that. And also there's, the IRGC, the military, the armed forces in Iran are realizing that if they put their roots into everything, into all institutions, into the education, into the, like, I don't know, business, all different industries in the country, then the toppling will become close to impossible, because that it requires the toppling of everything, not just the leaders of the country, right? So I don't know much about how it works here, but I guess I wanted to see the first thing I would look at is that, is this ruling family, like, do they have their hands into everything in the country? How much, the most important institutions that are operational, do they work independently from them, or are they, or do they require their approval, or do they, or would they, everything will just collapse if you, how easy is it to just remove the top and put something else in charge of it? That's so. Do you have any idea of what it's like there?
Um, well, again, I'd have to do further research because I don't want to pretend like I'm an expert, but I do know that the last time there was like really major unrest in the country, it was during the Civil War back in like the 80s. And I know um, at that time, I don't know. I'd have to double check. I don't think this same family was ruling the entire country at that time, or at least not at the outset of the Civil War, at the beginning. But I know that toward the middle or toward the end, India actually got involved with sending soldiers and doing a peacekeeping operation in Sri Lanka. And I also know that in recent years, I think one of their ports has been leased to China for like a 99-year lease. So they have a lot of debt to China. So not just whether or not they have internal control and their, branches, roots in all the different parts of the economy, the military, and other aspects of Sri Lankan society, but what connections the ruling dynasty has with outside forces, and whether or
Right.
not we would see Indian or Chinese or any other quote unquote peacekeeping force come in if things got too bad for them.
Right, you're right. One major influence in other countries, like in other protests in other countries where people are unhappy with the rulers, is that how much outside support, or outside, either for the people in charge or for the protesters, can each side rely on. That's a major factor as well. But yeah, I don't know what they are, but it's interesting to be able to talk about how you would analyze this, even without knowing about much about it. Like, it's very interesting to know that, oh, these were the elements that you would look for to be able
Yeah.
to come up with a conclusion. But
Mhm.
but I'm sorry that I don't have much, more information about this, because.
Oh yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, it's all good. I just thought it'd be a good thing to bring up since I haven't seen a lot of YouTubers talking about it, or news about it,
Yeah.
just in general. But anyway, so I guess I'll leave it at that for now, and
Yeah.
I'll let you get on to the next part of the video.
Yeah, you piqued my interest. I'm gonna maybe pay more attention to it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Ash,
Oh, hi Armin, how are you?
good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for the ad. Right, so I actually wanted to talk about. Okay, so I'm from India, and I wanted to talk about the low caste people. In, according to the Hindu religion or the Hindu way of life, as they like to say, the lower caste. Yeah, in that. So yeah, they basically are called Dalits by our society now. I mean, I don't have any statistics on this, but I have seen many Dalits. They're somehow trying to come across, as Hindus as well, and they are somehow trying to show that they are proud of their Hindu identity. But when you read about it, like a lot of people have this misconception that religion is the biggest issue. Well, religion is definitely a very big issue in India, but caste-based atrocities are huge. Now, I come from a privileged caste, so to say. I, for someone like me, it's very difficult to see what people go through. But when I dive deeper into this, and when I saw what low caste people go through, it's very sad. I mean, India, especially the rural part of India, casteism is huge. They are not allowed to drink waters from the wells, and they're not allowed to step foot. People don't buy stuff from them. It's very sad. When I see that there are so many Dalits who are trying to pretend to be like no, the real Hindus, and they're also somehow trying to show that they're proud of this so-called Hindu identity, do you think this comes from some sort of inferiority complex?
Okay, so I think it depends on the individual. Okay, but we have seen this. We have seen this in among other people as well, right? We have seen, back when, I don't know. We have seen. I don't want to give examples because YouTube might like really crush us for this, right? But I don't know. But even in Germany, right, we had people of the oppressed class, which I'm not even going to mention here, making excuses. Or we even had during slavery, in United States, people from the oppressed class making excuses for the oppressors, right? But sometimes, and whether or not, it might be a survival mechanism, right? It might be like it's the only way, maybe knowingly or unknowingly. Again, this is just guess. I don't know if this is true, but it might be the way for you to increase your standing in society. As bad as it is, if you, I don't know, kiss the boots of your oppressor, maybe he'll throw you a bone. I mean, that's what do you think?
Yes, actually, this makes sense because I remember reading this. Okay, so it's a history. It was a very small, paragraph. It spoke about how the Vaishyas, the third that come in the line, they were actually very, they were actually not considered as as upper caste back then, but because they were businessmen, they were able to, they had the money to have rituals, and they did rituals like Brahmins to come in their level. So yeah, in short, like they were someone who were not considered upper caste, but then they did those rituals. They pretended like they were, of the same level, and then, they are not as oppressed as they used to be now. Today they
Mm.
pretty much rule the country, like they are the business class. So yeah, really, yeah,
Okay.
it does make a lot of sense.
Okay, Arjun is here. Arjun wants to talk about this as well, respond to
Mhm.
your question. Hi, Arjun.
Hi, Arjun.
Yeah, hey, Amin. Hey, Ash. So yeah, I don't know if either one of you has seen the movie Asuran. So there they explain this question. So basically, the lower caste people have the names of upper caste people, so that if you are not able to become an atheist and like protest against the upper caste, at least become an upper caste and celebrate your identity, and then in that way they are trying to lose their Dalit identity. So this is what is happening. So it is seen as a kind of a shortcut to lessen their suffering or lessen their kind of operation that they're going through. So they claim that they are original Hindus or they are original or whatever. So and they keep names like Karnan or like from epics like Mahabharata, which usually upper caste people will keep that kind of names. So they will change their names and they will try to fit in more so that they are able to lose this identity. This is kind of pathetic and this is kind of sad that this is
It's
happening, but
very
yeah, this
sad.
is the reason that they're doing this. Yeah.
It's very sad.
Yeah, it is very sad. How easy it is to do that? How difficult is it? Like,
Yeah, it is very
um,
difficult. Like even if you change your name, like even some people can just identify by looking at their faces that which caste they belong to. It's not easy, but over a period of time, if you merge in with the cities and if you migrate to other places, it's very tough to find out your background. So yeah.
yeah, I mean, as sad as it is, we obviously we can't blame the people who play into this because I mean, they're just trying to survive, right? So so as you know, I don't want to like. It's easy for me sitting outside to be able to like, oh my god, why are you giving into this discriminatory system and why are you like giving it legitimacy? You should just leave it. But we're not being affected by it. Obviously, like people try to find the best way to survive in whatever conditions they have.
True that.
But yeah, that is sad. Like, is there anything we can say that will come out of this a little bit more upbeat? Like, or no, is this just going to leave it here? I mean, it's the caste system, so obviously not. Well, I guess like this is why we need to. I mean, this is why we. I mean, whether you want to call this religion or culture, whatever it is, this type of attitude needs to be. We need to fight against it, right? And this is why we need to bring more attention to it because this is something that is affecting a high number of people. Like when it comes to it's amazing to me that internationally this is not getting as much as attention as other forms of bigotry, right? So for example, anti-Muslim bigotry and anti-Jewish bigotry and anti-black bigotry, these are getting a lot of attention and they should get their attention. They're getting their attention justifiably. But this Dalit or anti-lower caste bigotry is one of the main forms of bigotry on the planet, affecting one of the highest amount of people being affected by. I mean, anti-atheist bigotry is also another one, but if we want to go by the number of people affected, this is one of the highest ones up there. Like just given the population of India, this should be one of the
One of the
leading
reason
forms of.
I think, Armin,
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
reason could be because it's easy to kind of spin a story against with black people and white people involved because the effects are visible. So except for a very few minority in India, nobody would be able to differentiate different caste people, but just by looking at their faces. So if some media has to do a coverage on this, it'll be so alien to foreigners, especially non-Indian people, that caste is such a foreign concept. You can even a small child can identify a black person from a white person. So this kind of this literally black and white. So but this has a lot of gray areas, and there's not just Dalits and upper caste. There's a lot of caste in the middle as well. So this is very complicated, and it's not like
But Jewish people are not easily identifiable, and yet that form of bigotry gets a lot of attention. I mean, justifiably gets a lot of attention.
No,
Yeah,
if
maybe-
not for the World War II, I don't think Jewish oppression would be
True.
this. Yeah, that's just the one incident that made their oppression a bit more important. Yeah.
Okay, true. That makes sense.
True that.
Okay. But so we could try to help that by bringing more attention to it, and I think it will get more attention as in the. Okay, so another reason is because, you know, Jewish people live in countries that are a lot more well off, right? So they have a lot more resources available to bring attention to things that need attention, right? And I think like maybe my hope is here I found a way to end this with a good note. Okay, I think like as India's economy keeps improving, and as you keep climbing the Maslow's hierarchy, more resources and attention will be dedicated to solving problems like this. So that's my.
But I think at that point it wouldn't be that necessary. But yeah, as you said,
yeah.
As India develops, they will also proportionally get richer as well. So
yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying as more people find ways, as more of a percentage of a country finds ways to cover their basic needs, then more attention will be spent on, you know, things that are beyond basic needs, including equality, lack of discrimination, political rights, freedom of speech, secularism, and stuff like that. That's how it usually works. When GDP per capita increase, people move to asking for not moving from less, being hungry or homeless to like, hey, where's my rights? So that's what I'm hoping for. So that's why economic prosperity for more people is such an important thing. And on that regards, I'm very optimistic about the future of India.
Hey, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the answer, Armin. Thank you, Arjun.
Thank you to both. This was
Arjun.
very interesting.
You,
I appreciate both of you. Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Well, that was interesting. That was a pretty good discussion. I'm proud of that. Okay, let me do, how many more patron questions we have? Let me do 3 more patron questions, and then we could maybe leave after that. Okay, so Mario is saying, did you know that in just the last week, more than 200 people have been killed by an organization called Janjaweed in Sudan? This is nowhere on the news, and just found this out on the following website. Okay, and there's the website. I don't see the website. Okay, well, that's crazy. I didn't know that. Well, okay, let me take a note of that. To answer the question, I did not know that. So, and it seemed like something significant that we should know about, because not enough people talk about things that are happening around Sudan. So, yeah, I'll take a note. So, yeah, short answer. No, I did not know that. And thank you for bringing that to my attention. Okay. Next question. What is your take on getting your body frozen the moment you die? Do you think the people currently frozen will ever wake up? Is it a viable way to live forever? So that's the first question. And the second question is, suppose you could wake up the people who had been frozen from over 50 years ago and keep them alive. How do you think they would react to all the changes in the last 50 years? Okay, first of all, not only to answer the first question, that is my plan. So that's not only something that I think is possible. I'm planning to have my head cut off, and I'm not joking, close to my death, not right after I die, because I don't know what happens right after you die. Like, I don't know if that's good enough time. I want my head cut off and frozen, just right before I die. I don't know if that's going to be legal. or maybe at the very moment that I'm legally dead, so that the people who are in charge don't get in trouble, right? Like very closely to my death, I want my head cut off and frozen. Okay, because a lot of people say it's impossible for you to be able to unfreeze your brain and bring you back to life, because it damages your brain or something. Like the unfreezing process will damage your brain cells, so they're saying that it's not possible. But it's not possible based on the technology today. You know, some people say the entire cell structure will be damaged if you freeze and then unfreeze your neurons, your brain neurons. So that's why it makes it difficult for bringing back to life people that you have frozen, right? But you don't even technically need to unfreeze the brain, as long as you have the connectome intact, as long as you have access to the entire mapping of how the neurons are connected with each other. You could basically recreate you at the moment of death. Okay, but again, I say recreate you at the moment of death, because technically there is no such thing as me or you. There's no consistent thing that you could call me or you, and by that logic, we are dying every 5 minutes, or at least every 3 years, or every second, maybe even, right? And there's a new of us born every second, because our connectome, your connectome is the way that your neurons are connected to each other. Like, it's the mapping of your brain, which basically the mapping of your brain alongside the hormones that are in your blood are determine everything that you reckon that is you, about you. Okay. And the hormones, is not that important. As long as you have the mapping of your brain, you could recreate yourself. And if you're thinking, well, if I recreate myself, that's not me, well, then you right now, based on that logic, you right now are not you 5 seconds ago. So as long as you could call yourself me, the same as me 5 seconds ago, a recreation of your connectome of your brain is you, even if it's recreated outside of your brain, even if you don't unfreeze your brain and you just have access to the perfect mapping of how your neurons are connected, and you recreate that is by every single metric that you call yourself me, the same as me 5 seconds ago, that would be you, even if it's not your brain anymore. So even if it's impossible to unfreeze the brain while keeping it alive, having the exact mapping of your neurons is good enough for you to be brought back to life. Okay. And therefore, we don't even need to have right now the technology for immorality, as long as you are able to freeze your brain to come back at a time to be unfrozen or recreated at a time where we have that technology. That is the way to live forever currently, right? And I actually, last time I checked, the cost for that, to have your brain frozen, or have you, because a lot of people want to freeze their entire body. You don't need to freeze your entire body. All you need is the head. So you could get a lot of cheaper price if you're like, oh, forget my body, just freeze my head, right? And last time I checked, that just cost $28,000, and that was a couple of years ago. Right now, I think it's even cheaper. So technically, all of us, a lot of us at least, could potentially have access to immortality based on technology that we already have, right? So there's that. So that's the first part of the question. Okay, Secular Sakai is saying that we don't have, humans don't fully understand the programming of our wetware. Okay, that's interesting. Yet, saving the hardware won't help if the software isn't fully understood and possible to recreate or copy. Okay, yes, that's true, Secular Sakai, but we know that even if we don't understand how the software works within our brain, right? If the brain is the hardware and we are the software, we know that the way the software works is completely contained within the hardware, right? So as long as you keep the hardware and make sure it's not changed, by the time that we eventually understand how the software works, we should be able to revive you, because we know whatever the software does, it's contained within this, by mechanisms within this material brain. Even if we don't know how, we just know it's here and it's nowhere else outside of here. So by preserving that, theoretically you should be able to revive it at some point, at the point when you eventually realize how the software works. Okay, so second part of the question: suppose you could wake up the people who had been frozen from over for over 50 years and keep them alive. How do you think they would react to all the changes? Okay, I don't know, honestly. It depends on the individual. So I think surprise is the easiest guess, but other than that, I think is the I don't know what else to say other than surprise, because every person will react differently. Okay. Secular saying there have been many companies that have failed and frozen bodies. Brain. Okay, I don't know. Okay, I mean, I know there, even if there has been failures, I don't think it means it's impossible, right? Anyways, wait, did I? Oh shit! Did I just unstar a question that I shouldn't have? 1 second. Maybe I think I might have unstarred a question that I shouldn't have. Just 1 second. Anyways, let me answer this one, but let me see if I did. I don't know if you reported. I think this one I did answer this one. Who was worse? Okay. Ooh, oh my God, this is a juicy. Okay, the question about Adolf. Okay, so I'm not gonna highlight that question. I'm just gonna read it. Mario saying, who was worse, Muhammad or Adolf? And I'm not gonna say the person's last name because YouTube might be extremely sensitive. So I would say individually. Okay. So first of all, we don't know much about the historical Muhammad. So I would judge Muhammad based on who he was according to Islam. Okay, because the historical Muhammad, if there was a historical Muhammad, has been lost to us. Okay, so if I want to compare Muhammad to Adolf from Germany during World War II, right? I would say from an individually as a character, if you want to judge the character of a person, Adolf was a lot worse. Okay, but consequentially, the effect that these people have on the world, Muhammad was a lot worse. Right. So moral character of a person, I think Adolf was worse, but 1,400 years worth of damage to the planet and an ideology that has taken over, like Adolf's ideology hasn't taken over the world to the extent that Muhammad's has, right? So net aggregate of cost and benefit of your actions, Muhammad far outweighs the harms that Adolf has done, even though moral character, Adolf was worse. Yeah. So I think I answered that pretty good. Kalo, like I said, so Kalo is saying, did Muhammad really kill all those? I'm not gonna say this because YouTube might think I'm saying that Abrahamic people, right? Our sources reliable. Okay, there's Muhammad's life itself. None of it is historic. All the sources that we have is based on Islam itself, and the historic Muhammad's life is completely lost to us, right? So if you want to judge Muhammad, you could only judge the character of Muhammad according to Islam. You cannot judge the real Muhammad. Okay, the real Muhammad might have not even bin Muhammad. His name was possibly not even Muhammad. Muhammad might have been a title for somebody. Okay. But yeah, the Muhammad, according to Islam, did the things that you mentioned, which I'm not going to repeat. But that's only the fictional character of Muhammad did those things according to Islam, based on Islamic sources. Okay, so let me do last question. Did I miss anything? I think I didn't miss anything. No, I think we're good. Yeah, I think this is the last question. I hope I didn't. No. Yeah, good. Okay, Secular Sakai. Oh, Secular Sakai donated $5. Thank you so much. And thank you, Susanna. Susanna, even when she's not here, she's helping me in the background. Okay, this is great. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to do one patron question and one member question from Arjun. Okay. So, okay, patron question. Say, don't know if you reported on this when it happened, but back in February, the second leader of ISIS, oh my God, was killed. What was your reaction, if any, and what do you think this means for ISIS? Okay, so it seemed like so many people didn't even know that this man was the leader of ISIS. So the branding of ISIS has been taking such a huge damage that this was very relatively insignificant to the first leader being killed. But I think the consequences of this was more local than global, because so the branding that exists right now for ISIS has become the global section of it. So first of all, we all know that the power of the brand has been taking a hit, a huge hit ever since the fall of it, of the state. But the remaining power that it has seems to be independent from a centralized authority, right? So it's a brand without a centralized control, where different people in different places just declare themselves as having this brand without necessarily having to be pledging allegiance to a centralized authority as they used to, right? So you could have, different in places in, I don't know, Africa, or in the Middle East, or in Afghanistan, for example, ISIS Khorasan, or in Philippines, and different places, people claim that they're ISIS, but it's because this, like, it's kind of like, okay, it's like McDonald's, right? It used to be a centralized authority, and if you wanted to open a franchise, you had to do some paperwork to be in line with the standards of the centralized authority, and you also had to make sure that your support, the centralized authority is benefiting from this, right? But now, when imagine if it's kind of like the McDonald's in Russia, right? So when the centralized authorities all of a sudden cut its ties because it was from these franchises, all these different units or bodies around the world can continue operating independently, just like the McDonald's, restaurants in Russia that are not McDonald's anymore. Some of them are keeping the name because who's going to sue them, right? Like, nobody can do that, But you could continue operating as a burger shop, and maybe you could even keep the branding, because the branding is what people recognize, and nobody can because there's not that much centralized power. You don't have to pay the consequences for nobody's going to hold you accountable, right? So everybody could latch on to the name because the name still has some power, without being united with the rest of the groups. It's just a familiar name people know, and because people are familiar with it, it has recruiting power, right? So you just like you might decide to make your own Islamic militia and have a new name, or if you just want to paint it with the ISIS branding, the benefit from that, By the way, YouTube, I'm not defending any of this. I'm just analyzing what's happening on the ground. So please, YouTube, please don't strike us down. Okay. This is analyzing radical groups. Please, guys, like this video, because all this talk is going to make our video very much suppressed, right? So as an Islamic radical group, you might be like, oh, I'm going to make my own new brand or call our group this. Or you might be like, I'm just going to put a name that people are familiar with it, because there's still a lot of people that want that brand back, and that will help me with recruiting, right? So because of all this independent branding from a centralized authority, that the killing of the second leader, was so insignificant because the ties were cut. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. Okay. So Susanna helped me read the donation. Thank you for that. And she also helped me highlight this member question. So I'm just gonna finish this with a member question, and then we could move on. Arjun is asking, do you think far left and far right converging and forming a circular spectrum of ideology? Because far left and far right both have similar ideas, albeit for different reasons. Okay, the main thing that brings them together, to be honest, like, a lot of people exaggerate how close they are, but also a lot of people dismiss how close they are, right? And I think the main thing that makes them seem close, come together, and make them seem like they're they're aligned. Okay, I mean, we know the differences, right? And we know their solutions to the problems are different. Okay, but I think they're both touching on modernity. Okay, they're both touching on being anti the liberal world order. That is the thing that they're both against. Okay, and how aggressively, and they both have members that are willing to take very aggressive positions to be able to, and do things that are extremely radical, to be able to challenge or harm this world liberal order, right? But the difference is what they want to replace it with. And when it comes to what they want to replace it with, they're very, very different. But because we are not at the point at all where they are in a position to replace it with anything, and we're mostly noticing the fact that they are against the same thing, at this point, they look very similar to a lot of us outsiders. But they will start immediately looking very different if, for example, the world liberal order collapses, or the liberal order collapses in certain countries or places, and now they have the upper hand. At that point, because their solutions are very different, at that point, they are going to look very different to us. Anyways, I don't know if that answer made any sense. Oh, we just got a member, we new member. Mir Jalal became a member. Thank you so much, Mir Jalal. So Mir Jalal, because you're a member, in future Q&As, I don't know, I'm gonna head out, but in future Q&As, new members can come up and ask their questions live on air. So if you're a YouTube member, so if you're a patron, you get your questions your questions get priority, and all the patron questions will be answered, right? And also you get access to our blasphemous art. So that's what being a patron gets you. But if you're a YouTube member, what you get is that during the Q&As, I post a link on the community tab. I removed it right now because I'm leaving. I post a link to the community tab, and you could hop over and you could ask your questions on audio live on air. But yeah, thank you, Mirjalo, for becoming a member. I appreciate that. Okay. Hopefully I'll get to talk to you maybe in the next Q&A. But for now, I am about to leave. I've been here for almost 3 hours, so I really need to go. But I appreciate your questions, and I hope you enjoyed this. Please, if you did, please leave a like, because it doesn't cost you anything. and it really supports our channel and it helps us grow. It takes half a second to like the video, and it's really beneficial for the growth of this channel. So please go ahead and do that. Anyways, bye. Thank you.